The Galactic Concorde's orbital station stretched across the void like a crystalline web, its surfaces gleaming with alien architecture that hurt Tom's eyes to look at directly. He shifted the weight of his equipment case, the familiar heft of his spectrometers and sample containers, a small comfort in this place where humanity was about to be judged. "Remember," Lynette murmured beside him, her amber eyes scanning the approaching reception committee, "we're not here to beg, we're here to demonstrate." The Keltar envoy led the group, its iridescent carapace catching the station's harsh lighting as it approached with fluid, mechanical steps. Behind it came a delegation of various species, some humanoid, others defying easy description. Tom's scientific mind cataloged details automatically: the crystalline beings that chimed with each movement, the gaseous entities contained in environmental suits, the small avian creature whose crest flickered between blue and violet. So, the Keltar's mandibles clicked in what Tom was learning to recognize as disdain, these are the representatives of the contaminated world. Tom felt his jaw clench, but Lynette stepped forward with a diplomat's measured grace. "Earth's atmosphere is indeed unique, Envoy. I trust your scans have been illuminating." The Keltar's compound eyes flickered. Surprised, Tom realized. Good, they'd expected cowering primitives. "Your world reeks of industrial poison," the envoy hissed. "Particulates, toxins, chemical waste, yet your species survives. Curious, but hardly impressive." "Survives?" Tom couldn't help himself. "We thrive." He set down his case and opened it with practiced efficiency. "Your scans detected something else, didn't they? Something that shouldn't exist in a poisoned atmosphere." The silence stretched. Several aliens leaned forward, and Tom caught the avian scientist's crest shifting to a brighter blue. Curiosity. "Bioengineered microorganisms," the Keltar admitted reluctantly. "Primitive bacterial modifications." Tom smiled, the expression sharp as a blade. "Not modifications, evolution, guided evolution." He withdrew a sealed sample container, its contents glowing faintly under the station's lights. "These microbes don't just survive in Earth's atmosphere. They actively neutralize toxins, benzene, heavy metals, radioactive particles. They break down compounds that would kill most galactic species in minutes." Lynette moved beside him, her presence reinforcing his words. "Humanity learned to make our world's challenges into our strengths. Perhaps that's why we're still here while other species hide behind atmospheric processors." The Keltar's mandibles clicked faster. Irritation. "A laboratory trick. Useful for waste management, perhaps, but hardly worthy of Concorde membership." "Then you won't mind a demonstration," Tom said, reaching for another vial. The testing chamber hummed with alien technology, sensors focused on Tom's improvised laboratory setup. He'd arranged his equipment with careful precision, each piece positioned to maximize visibility for the council observers crowding the viewing gallery above. "The compound I'm introducing," Tom announced, holding up a vial of viscous purple liquid, "is Keltar synthetic nerve toxin, grade 7. According to your own databases, it's lethal to 93% of known galactic species in concentrations as low as 10 parts per million." The avian scientist's crest flared bright red. "Alarm! You cannot mean to expose yourself." "He's not that foolish," Lynette interjected smoothly, though Tom caught the slight tension in her shoulders. She trusted him, but the stakes made everyone nervous. "Show them, Tom." Tom opened the sealed sample container, releasing a small cloud of Earth's bioengineered microbes into the chamber's controlled atmosphere. Under the high-powered microscopes linked to the viewing screens, the microbes appeared as tiny warriors, their engineered structures clearly visible. "Now watch," he said, and introduced 3 drops of the Keltar toxin. The response was immediate. The microbes swarmed toward the toxin, their movements aggressive and purposeful. On the molecular level, displayed in real time through the station's advanced scanners, the audience could see the breakdown process beginning. "Impossible," the Keltar envoy hissed, its compound eyes flickering rapidly. "The toxin is designed to resist biological degradation." "Your toxin," Tom replied, monitoring his readings, "assumes biological systems that follow galactic norms. These microbes were designed by a species that had to overcome industrial pollution, nuclear fallout, and chemical warfare. They don't just resist toxins, they consume them." Within minutes, the deadly purple liquid had transformed into harmless organic compounds. The chamber's atmosphere, which should have been fatal to any unprotected life form, now registered as cleaner than many galactic standard environments. The avian scientist's talons tapped excitedly against the gallery railing. The efficiency rate, it's unprecedented. How do they target specific compounds without disrupting beneficial molecules? Tom felt a flicker of genuine enthusiasm. A fellow scientist's curiosity was infectious. They're programmed with recognition templates, but more than that, they adapt. Each generation learns from exposure, building better defenses. Lynette seized the moment, addressing the broader audience. Humanity didn't just survive our world's challenges, we turned them into advantages. These microbes represent 60 years of environmental restoration, species survival, and adaptive engineering. They're not just a scientific achievement, they're evolution in action. But Tom noticed something troubling in his readings. The microbes weren't behaving exactly as expected. Their response patterns showed variations he'd never seen before, almost as if they were learning from the alien environment itself. He caught Lynette's eye and gave the slightest shake of his head. Not here. Not yet. The Keltar envoy's mandibles clicked in what Tom was learning to recognize as frustrated calculation. A useful biotechnology. Perhaps arrangements could be made for knowledge sharing. The predatory undertone in those words made Tom's skin crawl. But Lynette stepped forward with a diplomat's perfect smile. "We're always interested in collaborative research, Envoy, under appropriate circumstances, of course." 3 days into their residency on the station, Tom's makeshift laboratory had become a crime scene. His precision-calibrated spectrometer lay in pieces, its delicate sensors shattered. Worse, someone had contaminated his primary microbe samples with a cellular inhibitor that should have destroyed them entirely. Should have. "They're not just resistant," he muttered, adjusting his backup equipment. "They're adapting to the sabotage attempt." Lynette paced behind him, her diplomatic composure cracked enough to show the steel underneath. "The Keltar aren't even being subtle about it. Their technical staff accidentally bumped into your equipment twice yesterday." "Let them try," Tom said, watching his samples under improvised magnification. "The microbes are learning faster than I expected. Look at this." He gestured to the display screen, where the supposedly poisoned microbes were not only thriving, but showing new structural modifications. They've developed countermeasures to the inhibitor. In less than 6 hours, they've essentially vaccinated themselves against Keltar biotechnology. A soft chiming announced a visitor. The avian scientist entered, its crest a nervous blue-green. "I am called Zix. I wanted to apologize for the equipment damage. Some among the council believe intimidation serves diplomacy." Lynette moved forward, reading the alien's body language with practiced ease. "But you don't agree." "Science should not bow to politics," Zix replied, its violet eyes bright with conviction. "Your microbes, they represent breakthrough biology. To destroy them for political advantage would be—" Its crest flared red with indignation. "Wasteful." Tom looked up from his work. "You could help us prove their value, if you're willing to risk Keltar displeasure." Zix's talons tapped against the lab bench, nervous energy. "What do you propose?" "A joint presentation," Lynette suggested. "Your species analyzing our microbes alongside Tom's research. It would be harder for the Keltar to dismiss findings from two independent scientific traditions." "The Keltar have demanded a high-stakes test," Zix said quietly. "Tomorrow. They want to see if your microbes can neutralize something truly dangerous." Tom's hand stilled on his equipment. "How dangerous?" "Grade 12 compound toxin, the kind used in planetary sterilization protocols." The silence stretched between them. Grade 12 compounds weren't just lethal, they were designed to persist in environments for centuries, making entire worlds uninhabitable. "They're not trying to test the microbes," Lynette said slowly. "They're trying to kill them, and us." Tom resumed his work, but his movements had acquired a sharp precision. "Then we'd better make sure the microbes are ready." But as he prepared his samples, those strange behavioral patterns nagged at him. The microbes were adapting too quickly, showing responses that his programming hadn't included. It was as if they were receiving information from somewhere else, learning from sources beyond his laboratory. "Zix," he said carefully, "have you ever encountered microorganisms that seem to communicate with each other across distances?" The avian scientist's crest shifted to a pale yellow, uncertainty. "There are legends, ancient stories of worlds with living atmospheres, where microscopic life formed networks spanning continents, but such things are considered myth." Tom looked down at his samples, watching the microbes move with their increasingly complex patterns. Maybe myths are just science we don't understand yet. The high-stakes testing chamber resembled an execution facility more than a laboratory. Tom stood before a containment field designed to isolate the most dangerous substances in galactic storage, while above him the full galactic concord observed from behind layers of protective shielding. "Grade 12 compound toxin," the Keltar envoy announced, its voice carrying clearly through the chamber's communication system. "Designed to render entire atmospheres uninhabitable. 1 gram can contaminate a cubic kilometer of air for 3 centuries. Tom's hands were steady as he prepared his microbe sample, but his mind raced. The readings from his preliminary tests had shown something extraordinary. The microbes weren't just adapting to individual threats anymore. They seemed to be anticipating them. "The test parameters are simple," the envoy continued. "Neutralize the compound completely within 1 standard hour, or accept that humanity's biotechnology is inadequate for galactic membership." Lynette's voice reached him through his earpiece. "Tom, you don't have to do this. We can find another way." "No," he replied quietly. "This is why we're here." He released the microbes into the contaminated atmosphere, watching through sensors as they encountered the grade 12 compound. For a moment, nothing happened, and Tom felt his heart sink. Then the microbes moved. Not randomly, not following their programmed responses, but with coordinated precision that took his breath away. They formed clusters, merged temporarily into larger organisms, then separated again in patterns that seemed almost choreographed. "Extraordinary," Zix whispered from the observation gallery. "They're communicating, sharing molecular information in real time." The compound toxin, designed to resist all known biological processes, began to break down, but not slowly as Tom had expected. The decomposition accelerated exponentially as more microbes joined the effort, each one building on the discoveries of its neighbors. 37 minutes, someone announced. "The atmosphere is approaching galactic safety standards." In the gallery, Tom could see aliens leaning forward, compound eyes and optical sensors focused on the impossible scene below. The Keltar envoy's mandibles had stopped their rhythmic clicking entirely. 26 minutes. "Atmosphere now exceeds safety standards. The compound has been completely neutralized." But Tom wasn't celebrating. His readings showed something that made no scientific sense. The microbes hadn't just neutralized the toxin, they'd somehow anticipated its molecular structure before encountering it. Their countermeasures had been too perfect, too immediate. "How is this possible?" Zix asked through the communication link. "The adaptation speed suggests they possessed prior knowledge of the compound's composition." Tom stared at his data, pieces of an impossible puzzle clicking together in his mind. "They did," he said slowly, "but not from my programming." In the gallery, several alien species were clustering around Zix's display screens, their body language shifting from skepticism to fascination. Even some of the neutral species seemed impressed by humanity's biotechnology. But the Keltar envoy remained motionless, its compound eyes focused not on the neutralized toxin, but on the microbes themselves. When it finally spoke, its voice carried a note Tom had never heard before: concern. "These organisms," the envoy said carefully, "from where do they derive their adaptive capabilities?" Tom met its gaze through the observation window. "Evolution doesn't follow galactic standards, envoy. Life finds ways to survive that your textbooks haven't considered." But privately, he was beginning to suspect that Earth's microbes had found something far more significant than survival. They'd found a way to learn that transcended individual organisms, individual worlds, perhaps even individual species. The question was, what were they learning from? The revelation came during what should have been a routine calibration test. Tom was running baseline measurements on a fresh microbe sample when his equipment registered something impossible: electromagnetic signatures that matched Keltar communication frequencies. "Lynette," he called, his voice tight with controlled excitement, "you need to see this." She moved to his shoulder, following his gaze to the display screen where microbe clusters pulsed with rhythmic light patterns. They're glowing? Not just glowing, broadcasting. Tom's fingers flew over his controls, isolating the frequencies. They're intercepting and analyzing Keltar technology signatures in real time. That's how they knew about the Grade 12 compound. They read it directly from the Keltar data systems. The implications hit them both simultaneously. Lynette sank into the nearest chair, her diplomatic composure finally cracking. "Tom, if these microbes can interface with alien technology, they're not just bioengineered organisms," he finished. "They're a planetary defense network, and they've been active this entire time." As if responding to their conversation, the microbes' light patterns intensified. On Tom's sensor array, new data streams appeared, complex information flows that seemed to connect every sample in his laboratory. But more than that, the patterns suggested connections extending far beyond the station. "They're networked," Tom breathed. "Every microbe on Earth, possibly every microbe that's ever been dispersed from Earth's atmosphere. They share information instantaneously across any distance." A soft chiming announced another presence. Zix entered, but the avian scientist's usual nervous energy had been replaced by something approaching awe. "Your microbes," it said without preamble. "They've just disabled a Keltar spy drone outside the station." Tom and Lynette exchanged glances. "That's impossible," Lynette said. "How could they affect technology outside our controlled environment?" "The station's atmospheric recycling system," Zix explained, its crest flickering rapid colors. "Microscopic traces of your samples have been circulating throughout the facility for days. The microbes in the external maintenance areas detected the spy drone and neutralized its surveillance capabilities." Tom stared at his displays, watching the microbes' communication patterns grow more complex by the minute. "They're not just defending against toxins," he realized. "They're defending against any perceived threat to their ecosystem. And now they consider this station part of their territory." "The Keltar know," Zix continued urgently. "They're calling emergency sessions, claiming humanity has unleashed a biological weapon. Some species are demanding immediate quarantine protocols." Lynette stood, her diplomatic instincts reasserting themselves despite the circumstances. "Then we need to get ahead of this. If we can explain what the microbes actually are—" "A sentient planetary defense system that humanity created without realizing it," Tom interrupted. "Lynette, we've essentially announced that Earth is protected by something the galaxy has never encountered. The Keltar aren't just dismissive anymore, they're afraid." Through the laboratory's viewing port, they could see increased activity throughout the station. Ships were arriving and departing with unusual frequency, and the normal bustling activity of interspecies diplomacy had been replaced by clusters of urgent consultations. "Fear makes them dangerous," Lynette said quietly. "But it also makes them desperate. If they can't dismiss us anymore, they'll try to destroy us before we become a genuine threat." Tom looked down at his microbe samples, watching their coordinated light patterns with new understanding. "Then we'd better hope they're as protective as I think they are. Because if the Keltar are planning what I think they're planning, Earth is going to need all the defense it can get." On his sensors, the microbes pulsed brighter, their patterns spreading throughout the station's atmospheric systems like a living network awakening to purpose. Tom's fingers moved across his equipment with desperate precision as alarms wailed throughout the station. The Keltar sabotage attempt had been more sophisticated this time. A viral attack on the station's core systems that should have caused catastrophic decompression. Should have. "The microbes stopped it," he announced, watching his displays track the defensive response. "They recognized the viral code pattern and released targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the attack sequence." Lynette coordinated evacuation procedures while maintaining communication with the various species representatives. "Zix, can you confirm the station's structural integrity?" The avian scientist's crest blazed brilliant red as it worked at multiple control panels simultaneously. All systems stabilizing. But Tom, your microbes, they didn't just stop the attack. They've integrated with our repair protocols. They're actively fixing damaged systems. Through the laboratory's reinforced viewing port, Tom could see maintenance areas throughout the station glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns his samples displayed. The microbes had spread further than anyone had realized, creating a protective network that now extended through the entire facility. They're not just reactive anymore, he said, studying the data streams. They're predictive. Look at these patterns. They're modeling potential attack vectors and preparing countermeasures for threats that haven't even materialized yet. But the most disturbing readings came from his deep space sensors. Lynette, we have a problem. The Keltar fleet movements suggest they're not just planning to eliminate us, they're preparing to sterilize Earth. The silence that followed was broken by Zix's sharp intake of breath. A full planetary bombardment? That would violate every Concord Treaty. Unless they can claim Earth represents an existential threat to galactic security, Lynette finished grimly. A sentient bioweapon that can disable technology and spread through atmospheric systems, they could make the case. Tom's equipment registered new activity from the microbe network. The organisms were pulsing with increased frequency, their patterns spreading beyond the station and into the void itself. They know, he said quietly. The network is responding to the fleet's approach. They're calling for backup. Backup? Zix's talons scratched nervously against its control panel. What do you mean? Before Tom could answer, the station's communication systems activated. But instead of normal diplomatic channels, they broadcast complex biological signals. The microbe's network communication translated into electromagnetic frequencies that could cross interstellar space. They're contacting Earth, Tom realized. Every microbe on the planet, possibly every microbe in Earth's extended atmospheric envelope. They're coordinating a defense response across solar system distances. Lynette moved to the communication console, her diplomatic training asserting itself even in these impossible circumstances. Can we use this? If the microbes are coordinating globally, maybe we can demonstrate that Earth's defenses are too strong for the Keltar to overcome. Or we could prove their point about existential threats, Tom countered. If the Concord sees Earth as a planet-sized biological weapons system, but Zix's crest had shifted to pale blue, hope. Not all species fear strength. Some respect it, and there are others who have grown tired of Keltar dominance. The avian scientist began working at its controls with renewed energy. If we can coordinate our response carefully, we might shift the balance of power in the Concord itself. Tom watched his displays as the microbe network continued its mysterious coordination protocols. Whatever they were planning, it was vast in scope and unlike anything in his original programming. Earth's microscopic defenders had evolved far beyond his designs, and now they were about to demonstrate capabilities that would reshape galactic politics forever. Then we'd better make sure we're on the right side of that demonstration, he said. The Alliance meeting took place in a seldom-used section of the station where crystalline beings, gaseous entities, and various other species had gathered in unprecedented cooperation. Tom found himself explaining Earth's biotechnology to audiences that had never imagined such possibilities. A crystalline being chimed its concern. How do they define ecosystem? Does this include allied ships, trading vessels, exploration craft? Lynette stepped forward, her diplomatic skills finally finding purchase with species willing to listen. That's exactly what we're proposing to demonstrate. A controlled interaction between the microbes and willing participant ships, showing that they respond to intent and behavior, not just presence. Zix had become their primary technical liaison, its scientific curiosity overriding any concerns about Keltar retaliation. My government is prepared to provide test vessels, the avian scientist announced. We believe the potential benefits outweigh the risks. But Tom's attention was divided between the political negotiations and the increasingly complex data from his monitoring equipment. The microbes were displaying new behaviors. Not just communication patterns, but what appeared to be construction activity. "Zix, I need access to your external sensors. The microbes are building something in the station's outer hull." The view screen displayed the station's exterior, where microscopic organisms had somehow created visible structures, delicate web-like formations that extended from the hull into space itself. As they watched, the structures grew more complex, forming patterns that resembled antenna arrays. Communication enhancement, Tom realized. They're building organic radio telescopes to improve their connection with Earth. The implications were staggering. Within hours, the microbes had demonstrated construction capabilities, space survival, and coordinated engineering on a scale that challenged every assumption about microscopic life. "The Keltar fleet is accelerating," announced a gaseous entity whose translation came through as urgent harmonics. "Our intelligence suggests they've decided to act before any formal alliance can solidify." Lynette's jaw tightened with determination. "Then we demonstrate the microbes' defensive capabilities before they arrive. Tom, can the network coordinate a large-scale response?" Tom studied his readings, watching as the organic antenna arrays completed their configurations. "They're already coordinating. Every sample we've released, every trace that spread through the station's systems, they're all connected to whatever Earth is planning." As if summoned by his words, the station's communication systems activated with familiar biological signals. But this transmission was different, more complex, more urgent, and clearly directed at the approaching Keltar fleet. "They're transmitting to the fleet," Zix observed, its crest flickering between blue and yellow. "But the signal pattern, it's not threatening. It's almost diplomatic?" Tom leaned over his instruments, translating the biochemical signals into human terms. "They're offering terms. The microbes are essentially communicating directly with Keltar technology, offering to demonstrate non-aggressive behavior in exchange for peaceful resolution." But the response from the Keltar fleet was immediate and uncompromising. Weapons powered, shields activated, approach vectors locked on the station itself. "They're not interested in negotiation," Tom said grimly. "The network is going to have to prove its point the hard way." Throughout the station, the microbes' glow intensified, their patterns becoming more complex and purposeful. Whatever Earth's microscopic defenders were planning, it was about to reshape the galaxy's understanding of life itself. The Keltar ultimatum arrived at 600 station time: surrender the microbe samples and submit to protective custody, or face immediate military action. Tom and Lynette had 12 hours to respond. They spent it in frantic preparation. "The pulse generator is ready," Tom announced, connecting the final components of their improvised system. "But I'm still not certain the microbes will cooperate with artificial amplification." Zix worked alongside him, the avian scientist's technical skills proving invaluable. "Your microbes have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. If they understand the purpose of the device—" "They understand more than we do," Tom interrupted, watching his monitors display the network's increasingly sophisticated behavior patterns. "Look at this. They're not just communicating with Earth anymore. They're interfacing with technology throughout the station, learning the specifications of every system they encounter." Lynette coordinated with their unlikely coalition of allied species, her diplomatic skills tested by the urgency of their situation. "The Crystalline Consortium has agreed to provide defensive support," she reported, "but they're nervous about the microbes' expansion capabilities." Tom couldn't blame them. His latest readings showed organic constructions throughout the station's infrastructure, not destructive but definitely transformative. The microbes were essentially upgrading every system they touched, improving efficiency and adding capabilities that hadn't existed in the original designs. "They're preparing for siege warfare," he realized. "The microbes know the Keltar are coming, and they're fortifying our position." But their preparations were interrupted by an urgent alarm. Zix's crest blazed red as it processed incoming data. "We have a problem. One of the neutral species has been transmitting our tactical discussions to the Keltar. They know about the pulse generator." Tom felt his stomach drop. "Then they'll be prepared for it. they'll have countermeasures. Maybe, Lynette said, but her voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Or maybe they'll make the same mistake they've been making all along, underestimating what they're facing. The station's communication systems activated again, but this time the microbe signals were clearly directed at their immediate environment. Throughout the facility, every sample, every trace organism, every microscopic presence began responding to coordinated commands. "They're consolidating," Tom announced, watching his instruments register massive biological activity. Every microbe on the station is linking up into a single coordinated network. The effect was visible to the naked eye, streams of bioluminescence flowing through the station's corridors, walls, and life support systems. The entire facility was becoming a single living organism capable of coordinated response. "The Keltar won't expect this level of integration," Zix observed, its scientific excitement overriding fear. "They're approaching the station as a fixed installation, not a dynamic biological system." Through the viewing ports, they could see the Keltar fleet approaching, massive ships bristling with weapons designed to sterilize planets. But the station no longer looked like a static diplomatic facility. It glowed with organic light, its surfaces rippling with biological activity that spoke of capabilities beyond conventional technology. "Tom," Lynette said quietly, "I think your microbes have been preparing for this confrontation longer than any of us realized." He nodded, watching the pulse generator integrate seamlessly with the biological network surrounding it. "They're not just defending against the Keltar, they're teaching the galaxy what Earth's version of life can accomplish." The fleet was close enough now for individual ship signatures. In 4 hours, the demonstration would begin. The Keltar fleet opened fire at maximum weapons range, their energy beams lancing through space toward the seemingly defenseless diplomatic station. Tom watched the tactical displays with breath held, knowing that everything depended on the microbe's response. The station's hull erupted with organic light. Not defensive barriers or energy shields, but something unprecedented. The microbes themselves, now visibly present in massive quantities throughout the station's structure, began intercepting the incoming fire. Energy beams that should have vaporized hull plating instead struck what appeared to be living tissue that absorbed, converted, and redistributed the destructive force. "Impossible," breathed the Keltar tactical officer's transmission, picked up by the station's sensors. "The energy is being metabolized." Tom's instruments confirmed the impossible reality. "They're eating the weapons fire," he announced to the emergency council session. "The microbes are converting directed energy into biological fuel, using the attack to strengthen their defensive network." But the most dramatic demonstration was yet to come. As the Keltar ships moved closer, confident that their initial barrage had been ineffective but not threatening, the station began broadcasting the pulse signal Tom and Zix had prepared. The microbes throughout the facility responded instantly, their bioluminescent patterns synchronizing into a coordinated transmission that swept outward toward the attacking fleet. When it reached the lead vessels, their weapons systems simply stopped. "Report!" the Keltar fleet commander demanded over increasingly frantic communications. "Weapons offline, navigation compromised, life support systems registering massive infiltration of unknown biological agents." Tom's displays showed the pulse's effect in real time. Microscopic traces of Earth's microbes, scattered throughout the station's atmosphere and now broadcast on electromagnetic carriers, had reached the Keltar ships and begun their familiar process of technological integration. But instead of destruction, they were demonstrating protection. "Fleet Command, this is impossible. Our systems aren't being damaged, they're being improved. Energy efficiency up 30%, structural integrity enhanced, life support operating at optimal parameters." Lynette seized the moment, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Keltar fleet, you are experiencing Earth's true biotechnology, not weapons, but symbiosis. Your ships are now protected by the same organisms that have kept humanity alive in our world's most hostile environments." The silence that followed was profound. Then, gradually, reports began coming from throughout the fleet. Systems operating better than design specifications, hull integrity enhanced, Even crew environmental conditions improved by the microbes' presence. Tom stepped forward, his scientific training guiding his words. That's what Earth's microbes do. They don't destroy, they optimize. They've turned your weapons into tools, your attacks into improvements. You came here to demonstrate Keltar superiority, but instead you've proven that cooperation produces better results than conquest. Throughout the council chamber, alien species that had remained neutral throughout the crisis began expressing positions. The crystalline beings chimed approval, the gaseous entities harmonized agreement, and even some traditionally Keltar-aligned species voiced interest in Earth's biotechnology. The Galactic Concord recognizes, announced the senior arbiter, that humanity represents a unique approach to biological and technological integration. The question before us is not whether Earth deserves membership, but what role humanity will play in our collective future. Tom looked at Lynette, seeing his own mixture of relief and anticipation reflected in her amber eyes. They had proven Earth's worth, but in doing so, they had also changed the fundamental balance of power in galactic civilization. The microbes, still glowing throughout the station and now integrated with the Keltar fleet itself, pulsed in patterns that seemed almost like satisfaction. 6 months after the confrontation, Tom stood in the new Earth Embassy's Biological Research Wing, watching through reinforced viewers as Keltar scientists worked alongside human researchers. The former enemies had become some of the most enthusiastic collaborators in studying the microbes' capabilities. The integration process continues to exceed all projections, reported the Keltar envoy, no longer an adversary but a fascinated partner in biological research. Our ship's performance has improved by 47% since accepting microbe symbiosis. More importantly, we've had 0 systems failures in environments that previously caused regular equipment breakdowns. Lynette joined them, carrying reports from the Galactic Concord's latest sessions. The Crystalline Consortium has formally requested microbe integration for their deep space mining operations. The Gaseous Collective wants to explore atmospheric applications. Even the most isolationist species are reconsidering their positions. Tom nodded, but his attention remained focused on his ongoing research. The microbe's behavior continued to evolve, showing new capabilities with each passing day. They're not just adapting to individual environments anymore, he explained. They're creating optimal conditions for multi-species cooperation. Look at this. His displays showed biological networks that now spanned multiple worlds, connecting Earth's atmosphere with alien environments in ways that enhanced both. The microbes had become a galactic communications system, facilitating understanding between species that had never been able to interact directly. The most remarkable development, Zix added, its crest bright blue with scientific excitement, is their role in diplomatic communications. The microbes can translate not just languages, but fundamental biological and cultural concepts between species. They're making true interspecies understanding possible for the first time. Through the laboratory's viewing port, they could see ships from dozens of species arriving at the embassy station. Some came seeking microbe integration, others offering technological exchanges, and still more proposing collaborative research projects that would have been impossible before Earth's entry into galactic society. We've changed everything, Lynette observed, but her tone carried wonder rather than concern. The balance of power, the nature of diplomacy, the very concept of biological and technological integration. Tom watched the microbes in his latest sample, their patterns more complex than ever. They're still learning, he said, still evolving, and I think they're just getting started. A soft chiming announced incoming communications from Earth itself. The message was brief but significant. Applications for Earth citizenship from 17 different alien species, all requesting permission to undergo microbe integration and join humanity's unique biological collective. The ultimate validation, Lynette said with a diplomat's satisfied smile. They don't just want our technology, they want to become part of our ecosystem. Tom considered the implications. Humanity had entered galactic society as a dismissed, supposedly primitive species. Now they were becoming the center of a new form of interspecies evolution, one based on cooperation and mutual enhancement rather than competition and conquest. The microbes knew, he said suddenly. From the beginning, they weren't just defending Earth, they were preparing for this, creating a framework for galactic integration that would benefit everyone. Outside the laboratory, the lights of approaching ships painted streams of color across the star. Outside the laboratory, the lights of approaching ships painted streams of color across the star-dusted void, a vibrant tableau of galactic cooperation that had once been unimaginable. Each vessel, from the sleek crystalline transports of the consortium to the shimmering gaseous cruisers of the collective, bore the subtle, telltale bioluminescent glow of integrated Earth microbes. This was the new normal, a testament to humanity's accidental gift to the galaxy, a living, evolving network of microscopic life that fostered symbiosis rather than conflict. Tom, still observing his latest samples, felt a profound sense of awe. The microbes, his babies as he sometimes affectionately called them, were no longer just a scientific curiosity or a planetary defense system. They were a bridge, a translator, a facilitator of galactic harmony. Their patterns on his display screens were more intricate than ever, a dizzying dance of information exchange that transcended mere data. He could almost feel the vast, interconnected consciousness humming beneath the surface of the universe, a silent symphony of life working towards a common, optimized future. The applications are limitless. Lynette's voice, calm and confident, pulled him from his reverie. She stood beside him, a data slate in her hand, her eyes reflecting the distant star glow. The Keltar are reporting unprecedented agricultural yields on their arid worlds, thanks to microbe-enhanced atmospheric moisture recycling. The Crystalline Consortium's deep space mining operations have seen a 70% reduction in environmental impact, with the microbes actively neutralizing waste byproducts. Zix, perched on a specially designed ergonomic perch, chirped in agreement, its crest a brilliant, contented blue. And the diplomatic breakthroughs. Species that have been at odds for millennia are finding common ground through the microbe-facilitated communication. It's not just language translation, it's conceptual understanding. The microbes bridge the gaps in cultural context, allowing for true empathy. Tom nodded, remembering the recent historic peace accord between the belligerent Gorok and the reclusive Xylos, a treaty brokered not by grand speeches but by shared biological understanding facilitated by the ubiquitous microorganisms. They're creating a shared reality, he mused, a common ground at the most fundamental level of existence. But even amidst this triumph, a scientist's mind always sought the next question. The microbes were evolving at an exponential rate, their capabilities expanding far beyond anything he had ever programmed or even imagined. He had designed them for survival, for neutralization, for adaptation. He had not designed them for galactic diplomacy, for technological enhancement, or for interspecies communication. "What's their end goal, Zix?" Tom asked, turning to the avian scientist. "They're not just reacting anymore. They're actively shaping galactic society. Is there a limit to their integration?" Zix's crest flickered, a rare moment of uncertainty. "That is the question, isn't it? They seem to seek optimal efficiency, a state of universal balance. But what that means for the individual, for the species, that remains to be seen." Lynette, ever the pragmatist, interjected, "For now it means unprecedented peace and prosperity. The Concord is thriving. Trade routes are safer, resources are more abundant, and conflict is at an all-time low. We've presented a viable alternative to the old ways of conquest and competition." The direct line from Earth chimed, a familiar, comforting sound. It was Dr. Aris Thorne, head of Earth's Global Bioengineering Initiative, his face appearing on the main screen, a wide grin stretching across his weathered features. "Tom, Lynette, Zix, incredible news from Sector Gamma 7. The exploration probe we sent into the uncharted nebula, it's reporting atmospheric conditions that are, well, impossible. Self-repairing, self-sustaining, and teeming with life that shouldn't exist." Tom's eyes widened. "Impossible how, Aris?" "The atmospheric composition is constantly shifting, adapting to external stimuli, neutralizing radiation, even generating its own energy. And the life forms, they're microscopic, but they're forming macrostructures, almost like living starships." A chill ran down Tom's spine. "There are microbes, aren't they?" Eris's grin broadened. "We believe so. Analysis suggests a direct genetic link. It seems a few stray samples from our early deep space probes managed to find a new home, and they've been busy." Lynette looked at Tom, a dawning realization in her eyes. They're not just integrating with existing technology and environments, they're terraforming. They're creating new ecosystems, optimized for life wherever they go. The implications were staggering. Earth's microbes weren't just a defense system. They were a galactic seed, spreading life and optimized conditions throughout the cosmos. They were not merely adapting to the galaxy, they were actively shaping it, transforming barren worlds into vibrant, living systems. "The Keltar will be fascinated," Zix chirped, its crest now a vibrant, excited yellow. "A new frontier of biological expansion. This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic colonization." The former Keltar envoy, now a respected colleague named Kithar, entered the lab, its mandibles clicking with a familiar, though now less aggressive, rhythm. "Ambassador Lynette, Dr. Tom, Dr. Zix, urgent communication from the Concord High Council. They've received distress signals from the Outer Rim. A new unknown species has emerged, highly aggressive, and they're employing a form of energy weapon that, well, it's unlike anything we've encountered. It seems to disrupt all known energy shields and conventional defenses." The sudden shift in atmosphere was palpable. The euphoria of discovery was replaced by the cold dread of a new unknown threat. "What kind of energy weapon?" Tom asked, his mind already racing through potential countermeasures. Cathar projected a holographic image, a jagged, unstable energy discharge that seemed to tear at the fabric of space itself. "They call it void rend. It doesn't just destroy, it unravels. And their ships, they're cloaked, almost undetectable until they strike." Lynette's diplomatic smile vanished. "A new threat, just when we thought we had achieved stability." "Perhaps," Tom said, a glint in his eye, "or perhaps a new opportunity for the microbes to demonstrate their full potential." He turned to his displays, watching the network patterns. They were already reacting, their bioluminescence intensifying, their communication streams becoming more complex. "They know. They're already analyzing the void rend signature." Zix's crest shifted to a determined red. "Then we must prepare. If the microbes can adapt to this, they will truly be the galaxy's ultimate defense." The Concord mobilized, but the new enemy, dubbed the Umbra, proved devastatingly effective. Their cloaked ships struck with surgical precision, disabling key infrastructure and vital supply lines before vanishing into the void. Conventional defenses were useless. Panic began to spread through the Concord, threatening to unravel the fragile peace that humanity had helped build. On the Earth Embassy Station, Tom, Lynette, and Zix worked tirelessly. Cathar, utilizing his extensive knowledge of Keltar military doctrine, helped them anticipate Umbra tactics. The microbes, meanwhile, were performing miracles. They had begun to integrate with the station's long-range sensors, enhancing their sensitivity to the point where they could detect the faintest distortions left by the Umbra's cloaking technology. "They're creating a counter-cloak," Tom announced one frantic cycle, pointing to a new, subtle pattern on his displays. "The microbes are emitting a low-frequency biological pulse that disrupts the Umbra's stealth fields. We can see them now, faintly, but it's enough for targeting." Lynette immediately relayed the information to the Concord fleet. The first engagement against the Umbra, armed with this new intelligence, was a cautious success. Several Umbra ships were forced to decloak, allowing Concord forces to engage, though the Void Rend weapon remained a terrifying threat. "The Void Rend," Zix chirped, its voice tight with concentration, "it's not just an energy weapon. It's a localized reality distortion. It pulls apart molecular bonds by briefly altering the fundamental laws of physics in a small area." "How can the microbes counter that?" Lynette asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Tom watched his screens, a new complex pattern emerging from the network. "They're not countering it, they're stabilizing it. They're creating a localized field of hypercohesion, reinforcing the molecular structure of anything within their influence. It's like a living, adaptive force field." The next Umbra attack was aimed directly at a vital Concord medical station. As the Void Rend beams lanced out, the station, now permeated with Earth's microbes, shimmered with an intense bioluminescent glow. The beams struck, and instead of unraveling the station's hull, they simply dissipated, absorbed by the cohesive field. The Umbra fleet for the first time hesitated. Their ultimate weapon, their terror-inducing advantage, had been rendered inert. "They're retreating!" Cathar exclaimed, watching the tactical displays. "They've never retreated before!" Lynette's voice, amplified across the Concord channels, rang with authority. "Umbra fleet, you face the collective will of the Galactic Concord, protected by a force you cannot comprehend. Your weapons are useless. Your stealth is compromised. We offer you terms. Stand down or face the full, optimized power of galactic unity." The Umbra did not respond immediately. Their ships lingered at the edge of sensor range, their indecision palpable. Then, slowly, one by one, their weapon signatures powered down. Their cloaks, no longer actively maintained, flickered and failed completely. The Concord fleet, emboldened, moved in, but instead of engaging, they broadcast a new signal, one that carried the complex diplomatic patterns of Earth's microbes. It was an offer of symbiosis, of integration, of a better way. Days turned into weeks. The Umbra, a species that had known only conquest and destruction, slowly began to understand the concept of mutual benefit. Their ships, once instruments of terror, were gradually integrated with the microbes, their systems optimized, their Void-Ren technology repurposed into stable, powerful energy sources. The Umbra themselves, once cloaked in fear and aggression, began to emerge. Their forms revealed to be fragile, light-sensitive beings who had developed their destructive technology as a desperate measure for survival in harsh, light-blasted environments. The microbes, in their infinite adaptability, began to modify the Umbra's homeworlds, creating atmospheric filters that softened the harsh light, allowing the Umbra to thrive without their destructive technology. The species that had once threatened to unravel the galaxy became its newest, most unique members, their unique understanding of reality distortion now contributing to new forms of energy generation and spatial manipulation. Tom stood on the observation deck, watching the newly integrated Umbra ships dock alongside vessels from every other species in the Concord. The station hummed with a new kind of energy, a vibrant, multi-species symphony of cooperation. "They've done it," Lynette said, her voice filled with quiet triumph. "The microbes didn't just defeat the Umbra, they healed them. They brought them into the fold." Zix beside them chirped softly. "They didn't just optimize technology or environments or even species, they optimized the very concept of galactic interaction, from conflict to cooperation, from destruction to symbiosis." Tom looked out at the vastness of space, at the distant glowing nebula that was once an uncharted mystery, now a testament to the microbes' terraforming capabilities. He thought of the tiny invisible organisms that had started in Earth's toxic atmosphere, evolving, adapting, and now fundamentally reshaping the future of an entire galaxy. "They're not just learning anymore," Tom said, a profound realization settling over him. "They're teaching the galaxy how to truly live, how to evolve beyond conflict, how to become something greater than the sum of its parts." The Earth Embassy Station, once a symbol of humanity's precarious entry into galactic society, was now a beacon, a hub of interspecies research and cooperation. Scientists from every corner of the Concord flocked to study the microbes, to understand their principles of symbiosis, and to learn how to apply them to their own challenges. Humanity, once dismissed, was now revered, not for its might, but for its unique contribution to life itself. The microbes, the silent architects of this new galactic age, continued their work. Their network expanded, reaching further into the void, connecting more worlds, more species, more consciousnesses. They were not a weapon, nor a tool, nor a simple defense. They were life, unbound, evolving, and inviting the entire galaxy to evolve with them. The ultimate HFY story, not of human dominance, but of human ingenuity leading to universal harmony, orchestrated by the smallest, most adaptable beings in the cosmos. And as the stars continued to burn, so too did the quiet, persistent glow of Earth's microbes, a promise of an infinitely expanding future.